You started by asking for little, and he already thought that was too much. You asked for his presence. He said he was busy. You asked for affection. He said you were too intense. You asked to be heard. He made jokes. He diverted. He pretended not to understand. And yet, you kept insisting. You insisted because you thought love was about this, trying a little harder, giving in one more time, waiting just a bit longer, accepting less than you deserve so you wouldn't lose the one you love. But there comes a time when the body gets tired, the soul wilts, the heart dries up. There comes a time when your own dignity taps the shoulder of neediness and says, "Enough. You're not going to crawl anymore." It's not a shout, it's not a scandal, it's not revenge, it's just silence. It's just that last time you wanted to talk and he said, "You're just imagining things again." It's just that last night you wanted a shoulder to lean on and he turned away. He fell asleep. It's just the exact moment when you realize that asking for attention has become humiliation, that explaining what hurts has become a drain, that begging for his presence has become a habit. That's when you disconnect something within you. But he doesn't notice because he was used to you shouting, begging, crying, explaining in detail what you needed. He only heard you in your extremes, and he confused your shout with drama. But on that day, you didn't shout, you just got up, took a breath, and decided not to ask anymore. You decided that if being noticed means begging, then you prefer absence. If being cared for means you have to justify yourself, then you prefer abandonment. If being seen means you have to shrink yourself, then it's better to never be seen by him again. You stopped, not because you don't feel, but because you got tired of feeling alone. You didn't become cold, you became sober. You didn't stop loving, you stopped dimming your light, and that's where what he never expected begins. You start responding with a "I'm fine," but this time it's genuine. You're really fine. Because you no longer expect anything. Don't create anymore. Don't imagine anymore. You accept. And this acceptance has a bitter taste. But it also brings relief. The relief of not falling apart every time he disappoints you. He doesn't understand. Not yet. He thinks you're getting better. He thinks finally you're not so dramatic. He confuses your silence with peace. But your silence is just exhaustion. True peace is not this. True peace doesn't come when you stop feeling. It comes when you're reciprocated. You're not at peace, you're numb. And even so, it's better than that cycle of broken expectations. You start to return to yourself. You look in the mirror and see someone learning to breathe without fear, without guilt, without shrinking away. Gradually, you start to realize it wasn't an exaggeration to want to be loved. It was instinct. It was truth. It was your purest way of being present, but he never understood that, and maybe he never will. Because for him it was easy. You asked, he denied, you cried, he pulled away, you explained, he said it was drama. And now you've stopped justifying, stopped explaining what hurts, stopped teaching what is the bare minimum. Now you just observe. And as you remain silent, he starts to notice something's off. He starts to feel uncomfortable. He begins to ask why you're so distant. But he hasn't realized the time he had to do things differently. He hasn't noticed how many times you asked with love. He didn't see because he thought you would always be there. And you might have been, if he had noticed sooner. But now, is it too late? You still don't know. But for the first time, you're not afraid of the answer. Because what you feared the most has already happened. You stopped believing he will change. And as painful as that is, it's also freeing. Have you been through this? Share with me in the comments. Or just comment, "I needed to hear this," if any phrase here resonated with you. And still, he insists on seeing you as the overly dramatic woman. But what he calls exaggeration was precisely what gave life to the relationship. It was his care that maintained the bond, his presence that kept the connection alive, his love that sustained the link. He confused love with drama, and now he confuses your silence with healing. But you realize, you noticed the exact moment you stopped begging. You noticed the freedom of not trying anymore. You realized that the bare minimum was never an exaggeration. You understood that true love involves care, without you having to ask. And now that you're no longer asking, he feels the absence, not for your pain, but for the energy you put into trying, the effort you made to save both of you, the hope you kept alive all on your own. Do you know what hurts more than being called exaggerated? Being ignored after going silent. At first, silence feels light, like someone finally freeing themselves from a war. You take a deep breath, step back, recharge your energy, and think, at least now I'm not hurting anymore. But silence also has its price. Because your body has gotten used to feeling too much, to fighting too hard, to trying too much. And when you stop, something inside you trembles. It's not missing him. It's the echo of how much you insisted. It's the noise that your own silence makes when no one comes to find you. Because what you wanted wasn't to stop, it was to be heard. You didn't want to leave. You wanted him to hold you. You wanted him to say, "I see you, I understand what you're feeling." But he never said it. He never did. And now, even in the silence, he still pretends that everything is fine. He says you seem more at peace, that things are looking better now, that you've matured. He didn't realize that you gave up. He didn't see the pain hidden behind your calm exterior. He didn't understand that you emotionally distanced yourself long before you did physically. He didn't notice. But now he's starting to feel it. It begins slowly. In a gesture you don't reciprocate. In a message you respond to curtly. In a gaze you no longer hold. He starts to feel the emptiness that was once filled by his excess. Because even when he ignored you, you filled the space. You asked questions. You started conversations. You sought connection. You built bridges even when he only put up walls. And now, there are no more bridges, there's distance. And the strangest thing is that this distance, which he said he needed, now bothers him. He misses you, but he doesn't say anything, because admitting this would mean acknowledging that the drama he rejected was love. It was you trying to hold on to what he was letting slip away. Have you noticed this? That sometimes silence speaks louder than a scream. That when you stop insisting, the absence begins to scream in the soul of someone who never listened. You realize this now, and so does he. He feels that something has changed, but he doesn't know how to explain it, because what he misses wasn't the peace. It was the energy you brought into the relationship. You were the flame, the drive, the care, the memory, the touch, the devotion. And he thought all of this was excessive. He thought you were too much, until you stopped. And now he sees that there's nothing left. The house is quiet, but it's not a pleasant silence. It's a strange silence, as if the spirit of love has left. And it has. You're still there, but not in the same way. Your body remains, but your soul no longer stretches. You don't try to please, you don't try to save, you don't try to prove you're worth it. And he feels it. He feels the space where there was once life. He misses the exaggeration he judged. He realizes that the control he thought he had was just your insistence on loving. Now he walks through the house looking for signs, but you leave no more traces. You no longer leave notes. You don't send long messages. You don't ask if he arrived safely. You don't call to see if he ate. And each of your absences is a reminder of how much he lost you bit by bit. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have the courage. But he starts to look at old photos. He begins to revisit old messages. It starts to remind you of how present you were, even when he left you alone. And for the first time he wonders, was I too harsh? Did I lose something that will never come back? He begins to realize, but you no longer want to convince anyone. You don't want to explain anymore. You don't want to ask anymore. You don't want to prove that feeling too much isn't a flaw, because you realized who loves you listens, who loves you cares. Who loves you doesn't force you to silence your essence. Were you too much? Maybe, but it was a beautiful excess, full of life, of giving, of truth. It was your way of loving, completely. And he only realizes this now, when the drama turned into absence, when the longing turned into distance, when the intensity turned into silence. And this silence screams. It screams in the heart of someone who always had but never knew how to appreciate. Have you ever lived something similar? What was the first time you fell silent? Not out of maturity, but out of exhaustion. Tell me in the comments, or share this text with someone who needs to hear it. The deepest part of all this is that you still feel. You feel everything, you feel a lot, but you don't express it the same way anymore because your heart still beats, but has learned to protect what's left of it. You've learned to pull back. And this pulling back is powerful, because it's not giving up, it's wisdom. You know he might come now, he might say he misses you, he might promise to change. He might even try to win you back. But you also know that now, it's not just any gesture that will convince you, because you've tasted the peace that comes with embracing your own intensity, and you don't want to go back to a place where you have to diminish yourself to be loved. You don't want a love that only listens when you stop talking. You want someone who sees you while there's still time, and he begins to realize, but maybe it's too late. It wasn't sudden, but it was irreversible. He didn't notice when he started to miss you. He only realized when he was already inside the absence. At first, he tried to fool himself. He thought you were just playing games, that it was stubbornness, that it was just another phase of yours, one of those that he expected you to outgrow without having to do anything. But the days passed, and you didn't come back. You didn't come back to ask for attention. You didn't come back to explain the silences. You didn't come back to fill his emptiness with your intense presence. He started to notice how you spoke, more direct, more restrained, straightforward, without the sparkle of before. The words had the same form, but they no longer held the same soul. You were no longer the woman who bowed down. You were the woman who stood tall. And he felt it. He felt in his body the absence of your good morning messages. He felt in his chest the lack of your excessive care. He felt in bed the coldness of the spot where you used to seek affection. And then it hit him. It wasn't drama. It wasn't neediness. It wasn't exaggeration. It was love. It was your way of loving. It was your whole soul being given to someone who only knew how to refuse it. Now he misses it, misses everything he called excessive, misses your insistence, misses your touch, misses your repeated questions that he called boring, misses your long embrace which he used to cut in half, misses the care he never knew how to reciprocate, misses your presence, but mostly misses your effort, because that's what hurts him the most now. To realize that the bond only existed because you were still fighting for him. And when you stopped, he realized he didn't know how to sustain anything on his own. He realized he only seemed strong because you held everything with both hands and still smiled. Now he walks around lost. He feels a longing that has no place to fit. He looks at the photos of you both and sees what he didn't notice before. The shine was all in you. The lightness, the devotion, the presence, it was all you. And he didn't see it. Or worse, he saw it but mocked it, called it exaggeration, called it neediness, called it, you feel too much. And now he understands. He understands that that feeling too much was what brought color to the relationship. It was what held everything together. He begins to remember the times you cried and he turned his back, the times you explained what hurt and he said, "Here comes the drama again." He starts to recall the times you asked for him to be present and he replied, "You're never satisfied with anything." He remembers the times you begged him to really look at you, and he stared at his phone, he remembers. And for the first time he feels what you felt, the pain of not being seen, but now it's him who is invisible. You're still there, maybe still in the same place, but you're no longer the same. Your soul has transformed. You grew tired. You retreated. You remade yourself, and what's left of you he no longer recognizes, because now you no longer want the bare minimum. You no longer want to insist. You no longer want to have to teach the basics. You want someone who notices, someone who feels alongside you, someone who values what you have before you need to stop giving. And he only understood this when everything came to a halt. He misses you, but he doesn't know how to return. Because he knows it's not enough to say, "I miss you." He knows that now you see everything. He knows that now you won't fall for the promises anymore. He knows that now, to have you, he would have to rebuild much more than the relationship. He would have to rebuild himself. And he hesitates. Because loving you the way you deserve takes effort. It requires commitment. It requires constant presence. It requires awareness. He finds himself facing the woman he lost. Not because you left, but because he never truly arrived. And maybe now it's too late. Maybe not. You still haven't decided. But the harshest truth is this. He missed what he called exaggeration, because it was exactly that exaggeration that kept the relationship alive. And now he sees that the silence you made is the same silence his soul listens to every night, a deafening emptiness that only exists because he never had the courage to hear your scream. Do you realize? Do you notice how everything has changed? How the woman who once begged for love now holds the power to decide who stays? Do you see how the intensity that was once judged is now remembered as the most beautiful part of it all? Do you realize that the exaggeration was you completely giving yourself, throwing yourself in, surrendering, and that today he misses exactly that? You don't need to go back, you don't need to be silent, and most importantly, you don't need to justify yourself anymore. You've explained yourself too much to someone who just wanted to silence you. You've given too much to someone who only knew how to deny. And today, whether you decide to stay or not, it's your choice. But now, it's a conscious one, with your soul standing tall, with the truth clear, with your self-love whole. If this resonated with you, comment, I needed to hear this. Or send it to someone who thinks feeling too much is a flaw. But before you go, remember this. Whoever once called you excessive will miss the love that you gave abundantly. And they might only realize that when the silence you've created is the only sound left between you. This was just a part of the story. I'll see you in the next video.